The Cascadia Educational Conference's How Did We Rise Up? You're about to get an insider's view about how the Cascadia Educational Conference went from in-person to hybrid. Let's open with the conference song that was written during the conference.
This is your song. Hope you like it. Here we go. With the funk, with the R&B, with the country and the western. Let's start with some funk, shall we? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So give me some country. Woo! Come on now. Yeah. Cascadia, Cascadia. I might be from Australia, but we are rocking everywhere with Nirvana, Queen, and even Cher. Jenny and John gave us some chords, and Cowbell gave us one more. We started with that commitment dance. Now everyone was given a chance. Rise up, what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia sure loves their etouffee. The rock and roll game show was heaps of fun, but the winning team was team number one. The dance contest was hard to beat. Cascadians sure have two left feet. We are in 2022, and what does that mean to you? Concerts, travel, and sunshine, and don't forget some purple wine. Rise up, that's what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia loves their etouffee. So rise up, that's what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia sure loves their etouffee, yeah. Aggies love their etouffee. Cascadians love their etouffee. Cascadia the way, they love their etouffee. That's what you call it. It's called a sticky tape dance. Oh yeah, you feel it going on, big man. Cascadia, keep on rocking all the way. Just make me your queen of etouffee. Jenny, rhymes with sleigh. Okay, all right, Cascadia, all the way.
Oh my goodness, it's like reliving it all over again. Hey, I'm John Shen. I'm the CEO for Engaging Virtual Meetings, and I was the virtual producer for this amazing Cascadia Educational Conference. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. Sit back, hang out, relax, and we get to hang out with meeting planners who got to really be behind the scenes here. So really get a chance. Rise Up was the theme of this event. All of you in the meetings profession know about this. We've all had to rise up over the last 2 years, and this committee just did it too. And so we're really going to get a chance to share all that. We're going to hear from a variety of different people who are on the committee, and so let's just go ahead and get on with it. It was a great conference. So many people in there. Shout out to Greg Hines, and I love Janae's blank stare is probably like one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. Let's just start off with our co-chairs. Lisa McAfee was one of our co-chairs, and of course we now have Janet Denman, who is also the other co-chair, and she's going to share a few words of just like the setup. Well, what was this conference when they started, and how did it progress? Let's give a round of applause for the one and only Janet Denman.
Hey, everybody.
What's up, Janet?
Hi. So excited to be here today. As most of you know, some of the other attendees may not. I was not able to attend the conference itself just because I'm actually not in the industry anymore. I'm working at a company doing project management for marketing for audiologists, hearing aids. So it's nowhere near meetings and events. But, I started this commitment 2 years ago when I was at my former company being an event planner. And, Lisa and I went through the first decision to not hold the conference in person in 2021, which was difficult in its own because we were still in the thick of the pandemic. When I decided to do this in 2020, it was like the last time we met, the pandemic had just started. I, in my foolishness, thought it was going to be over in 3 weeks and we would all be back to work and back to normal. Well, what are we, 2 years later, literally? And we're still battling this. So, 2021, we did a lot of work in the theme and getting speakers and doing all that stuff. But, when it came down to it, because of the industry and because of the way the pandemic hit our industry, and so many people were just not employed, there were, you all know how bad it was last year, that we decided to just do a short State of the Union, presentation, few hours in one day. And it ended up being very, very successful, but still not what we had envisioned for a Cascadia ever. And so, as this year went on, the still uncertainties were there. We didn't know what we were going to do, but our intention was to hold an in-person conference with a virtual component. At first, we didn't know what that virtual component was going to look like because we wanted to bring the people to the conference and not cannibalize it, so to speak, by having too much of a virtual offering where people didn't want to come, because we still have to keep in mind, that these venues, the Coeur d'Alene Resort has given us, a lot of things to come there. And we want to actually be able to give them back, their investment and time and everything. And so, you want to bring the people there and you want the venue to get its rewards from offering to host us there too. So it's really difficult to decide whether or not you're going to go, in person and how much of that's going to be virtual. And as time goes on and, our registration just wasn't there. We all know the industry is still struggling. We're still trying to get people in the industry. I'm not in it anymore. Lisa's not. Well, she is mostly sort of in it. But a lot of people aren't. And so, volunteers were hard to get. We weren't seeing the registrations that we needed. We had a lot of conversations about, our regular size conference. And then as it kind of went on, it went smaller in person, bigger virtual, smaller in person, bigger virtual, and conversations with the venue on what that would look like and how that would affect them and if they'd still be willing to do it and things like that. And when it finally just came down to it, it came to a matter of making responsible decisions for not only our members who may or may not be able to attend, but the venue and our chapters, and trying to do the best thing for everyone involved. So it's not just, what's the best thing for Cascadia or what's the best thing for the Coeur d'Alene Resort. It's what's the best thing for everybody. And so we made the heartbreaking decision to change to virtual. And then, what does that look like? We still don't have registrations. We've redone our budget now to determine, what we need to break even at least, and how many people we need to attend so that this makes sense. And then part of it too is, how do we present a virtual conference that is really accessible to everybody to then be able to carry on for themselves. So, there's tons and tons of platforms out there that we could have used, could have made fit, could have tried to get sponsorships, could have tried to get them for free. But when it came down to it, we thought, what is the most obvious for everybody and how can we make it a really, really engaging virtual conference that everybody loves in the most accessible way possible for everybody. And that's why we chose Zoom. And I think that from all things that I've heard, it ended up being a fantastic decision in the end. And I hope that even though it wasn't what we wanted to do and it wasn't what we had hoped that we would do, in our hearts, it made the most sense for everybody. And we still delivered a really good conference that, at least broke even and showed people that, a Zoom conference can be really, really, really good. And it doesn't need to be expensive. And it is accessible to everybody. And so those were like the challenges that we went through and kind of the thought process through where we started 2 years ago and where we are now.
Now, Janet, wait a second. I just heard that inside of there. What you said that, well, I think it was good. What do you mean I think it was good? What happened here? The final.
I wasn't able to attend. I've heard wonderful, wonderful things. And from the feedback that we've gotten that Stephanie mentioned at the beginning of the show, everybody really liked it and appreciated, the thought that we, as a committee, put into how we were going to deliver this and what we were going to bring to them to make it fun and engaging, and that made people want to get on and do yoga and planking and bingo and fun stuff and learn at the same time.
Well, great. We're going to share some results, but I have your teammate, Lisa, who, of course, you couldn't be there and now she can't be here.
Right.
It's the wonders of virtual. So let me play this little message. And when we come back, Janet, I'd just love a final word about what it's like. This partnership between MPI Oregon and MPI Washington, as well as the many other chapters we work with, is very unique in MPI. Even at MPI leadership and international, people, when they hear about Cascadia, wish they could do some of the things that we've developed over the years.
And I kind of just want to say, moving forward for especially Kimberly, who's coming up as the next co-chair for Washington, we still need an Oregon, anyone? Right? Come into the fold. Resistance is futile. So Lisa and I, you develop a really good working relationship with a person, and where I couldn't jump in, she was able to and did, and vice versa, so we really kind of had each other's back through this. And it's really nice to know that, you don't have to worry about what's going to happen because you have somebody there by your side, picking up the slack for you, or, pitching in where you can't. So it's a great partnership.
Well, let's take a look at this message. We got a minute or so. This is Lisa doing at the very end of the conference. Here we go. Keep applauding. Keep applauding. One more time. Hey. Thank you so much.
What a great conference this has been. After 2 years, it was great to finally see so many of you again. I'm so amazed at you, Cascadia. From Zoe's use of annotation to Jessie's presenting using her background to Tara beaming in her Orlando studio. I hope we showed you how to rise up using virtual. We hope that we've inspired you to rise up and conquer everything that comes your way. So go ahead and cross off survive pandemic as achieved. We did this.
There we go. So that's a great piece there from Lisa. We'll come back here to us. I've been a past chair too of Cascadia. And if you really want to get your value out of MPI, I've really gotten to meet so many people in MPI Oregon's chapter when I was a past chair. That's what I think that was one of the biggest values. Janet, your last words on working with the amazing Lisa.
It was a great ride. I'm gonna miss this team so much. Makes me want to cry.
And she cried, by the way, too. She cried at the end, like she could almost not get through these last set of notes, Janet.
It's tough, you put a lot of your heart and your life into these conferences, and it's all near and dear to me and Lisa and us. And I just want to say from the depths of my heart, thank you to everyone who made this possible. Thank you to all your support over the last 2 years. And, it's been a really, really great ride, and I wouldn't change it for anything.
Well, Janet, thank you again for your volunteer leadership and service. I think it just shows that all of us in the meetings industry, we're emotional because we're so passionate about what we do. Again, you did it, and Lisa did it, and I have done it so many times too. So again, Janet, thank you so much. Why don't you help welcome to the stage somebody who's been in this industry over 30 years. Let's bring up Ann Hallinan. Oh, gotta go get her. Ann Hallinan to the front desk. Oh, there we go. Hey, Ann, how are you doing?
You're aging me.
Oh, well, it's because you're 32.
Yes, I started as an infant.
And before you go off, we have Janet here. Do you want to just say thanks to Janet for you've seen her work even more I have over the last year?
Well, I've been working with Janet on this for over 2 years now. We started way back in 2019, and she's been there every step of the way. And we can't thank her enough for sticking through it, even when she had to leave the industry. So, I mean, we just owe so much to you, and thank you so much because you rocked it. And it takes a village, but it takes really strong leaders too. So thank you to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, Ann, so let's see, you're going to talk through a little bit of, you're the behind the scenes. So again, I've also served on the board. You're in the supervisory kind of role, overseeing this event. And I would love for you to share some of that. And most importantly, so many meeting planners have to make this, like Janet said, it's a crushing, sometimes it feels like a soul crushing decision to have to make these changes, but they're important. So we'd love for you to share some behind the scenes on that and how you made that decision. Thanks, Ann.
Yeah, sure. So my role with the committee this year is as the board liaison to the Oregon chapter. We have mirror positions for Oregon and Washington. Angel Hansen was with the Washington chapter, and we are just there to help with the planning and direction of the planning of the conference and the report back to the board. The conference, of course, is put on as not only just for education, but also as a support to our chapters. So when we were going through the planning, like Janet was saying, it's difficult as things were moving and changing. How are we going to move and change based on what was going on in the real world? So we, as a committee, discussed our options, what things were looking like. It wasn't just all COVID related. A lot of it was budget related. Realizing where our members were at that time, as far as some people still had travel bans, hardly anybody had any budget. And then we also weighed in the fact that this event was to take place in Idaho. And we are Oregon and Washington, and we knew that Idaho wasn't as strict with their precautions as our states have been, so we thought that might be a factor. But so when we looked at everything, we kept going back and forth, and then as a committee we talk about it. I'd bring it back to our board, Angel would bring it back to their board, we talk about it again, and then we just kept progressing forward that way. And then, of course, obviously, it made the best fiscally responsible decision to go completely virtual. And then, of course, the next challenge was making sure that it was the most engaging virtual conference that we possibly could put on, because we are leaders in the industry who wanted to do it right. So we worked together as a team and with all of our members, and hopefully we did that. That's what we tried to do, and we feel like we did a really good job. So did that kind of answer your question, John?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ann. So just for context, when you had to make I guess at the beginning, right, it was kind of Delta, and it was starting actually finally to fade. And all right, and I think you also went through 3 stages too. You went through in person, right, then hybrid, and then virtual, right? And that last stage in there was, Omicron was, I think, what was happening on the landscape at that time. And Omicron, of course, is none of us had seen anything like that ever. So that's what I'd love to hear too, because I heard it was not just Omicron that really made your decision. What are some of the other factors?
I mean, it really was. It was it was a roller coaster, right, over 2 years. In person, hybrid, not.
Yeah.
Then, okay, we're going to do it again. In person, hybrid, not. That's kind of how it went, right? When it came to 2022, we just thought we were going to basically regurgitate what we started for 2021.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. But then obviously that didn't happen. But that was because of all the different variables that we had to take into consideration.
Yep.
So we went in gung ho thinking, okay, yay, we get to do an in-person conference again. We're so excited. We know that that's what our members want. Everybody loves meeting in person. We get a lot of business and networking done. That's why people come to Cascadia. It's the education, but it's also the networking, right? And we know that.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard it for the last 20 years. We know that that's why people want to come. So we were really trying very hard to make sure that that happened. But then also knowing that there were those travel bans in people's budgets, without we can't leave those people behind either. So let's make sure that we have a virtual component, because it's not their fault that they can't be here. They want to be here too. So then we had to look and see, what did that look like, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. As we got into, well, I guess the winter, December, I think, around there, where we got to make a decision. And at that point, it really did come down to finances and budget. We couldn't figure out a way to pencil it out that we can do the event in person and virtual, hybrid, and not lose money. And we needed to be responsible for both of our chapters. We couldn't afford to lose money after the last 2 years both chapters have had, right? We needed to make sure that we at least broke even. And after we redid the budget, I don't even know how many times, Stephanie can help with that, we realized it just wasn't going to pencil out. We just couldn't make it work. So that's when we had to pivot. Oh, use that word. That's when we had to switch to fully virtual.
One of my friends who runs a conference too, he estimated his personal, well, not personal, but his conference cost for going hybrid is like 40 grand. It is not, sometimes not a economical proposition is probably the right word.
No, that's absolutely true. And then with all the other factors we have too, because you need the people there to pay for it, and you need sponsorships. And
so Ann, you served on a lot of boards, I think, for a long time. That fiduciary responsibility role, you got to put the hat on sometimes, right? There's a hat of what we want to do, and then there's the hat of like, I'm representing this board and organization that I've been a part of for years. It's still hard, but I'm just curious for you personally, especially Anna, with as many years of experience, what helps you make that quote unquote right decision just for you?
Yeah, 100%. Because I am on a board, and that is my duty and my responsibility to make the best decision for the chapter, for the organization, right? So yeah, really, that's it. I mean, we knew that that's what we had to do.
And you just made the right decision, right? In a role of leadership, right? And in the absence, I think this is like Colin Powell's, like in the absence of leadership, right? Lead, just make a decision, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what we had to do, and we did, and we're all glad that we made that decision. And I know that, of course, after we make the decision, we take it back to the boards, and the boards say, "Yeah, you're right. Let's do it that way."
And so it's not just you agreeing, right? We're talking about 12, 14, 16, meeting professionals all agreeing, right, in this decision, right, Anna?
Right, absolutely.
Speaking about agreeing about make decisions, I got a great quote from one of my trainer friends, Bob Pike, and he said, running a 100% live conference is a huge risk, right? Oh, by the way, running a 100% live virtual conference is a huge risk, unless you have the right team. And help me welcome our next two guests, talking about the right team. Let's bring up Kimberly Kapferstein and Jen Cox. Here they come on the way up. One last words here. Do you want to say thanks to this educational team that really, there are two goals for our conference, education and networking. Those are the two things. And what can you say to this education team that you got a chance to help pick?
Oh my gosh, I think that they knocked it out of the park. And I thank them so much for it, because it's hard, and they'll explain how hard in just a minute. So we really appreciated everything you guys did. Thank you so very, very much.
And I
Great.
think we have to say thank you to Anne, because one of her tasks was to make sure we stayed on task, Jen and I, on making sure that we had those credits for our members where they need to be, because education is such a big part of this conference for those who want to obtain that, as well as their CMP. So thank you, Miss Anne, for always reminding us about that.
And thank you, Stephanie, who we're going to hear from in just a minute. She just chatted that all the courses, I believe, at Cascadia were approved for CEU credits from the CIC. So if you were there and you are a CMP, you can use all of that to renew, or of course, apply for those of you who don't have the 3 letters afterwards. Thank you so much, Anne. All right, so Jen and Kimberly. Again, Kimberly too, you got this, you're going to be the chair next year, but you were the co-chair this year in charge of the education. Why don't you go ahead and start, and then Jen can do some commentary with you on the challenge of choosing education for this Cascadia.
Wonderful. Well, I've been a part of Cascadia now. For 2 years, they actually brought me in as the DEI lead, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion lead that Cascadia 2019 board had decided to start making part of their effort to make sure that we include and bring in different parts of that into our education for our members. So that was huge. And going down that path and just, making sure that our 2020 efforts really showcase those kind of educational properties that we needed. So I felt that I had a great hand in how the back end needed to flow, how things were decided, which led me to being the education chair, which I was co-chair, I should say. I was very happy to take that on with a wonderful another member who, like Janet, we also lost, as we have lost so many, to unfortunately taking a position outside of the industry. So Tim was a wonderful member. He helped me up until the beginning, but he did have to step off, unfortunately, because of his position, his new position outside of the industry. So once again, you kind of take everything under your wing and you start, hoping that we can bring someone else on. And in the nth hour, thank you, Miss Jen, Jen Cox came to the table and she stepped up and helped me immensely in finalizing the education for this event. So I thank you personally, Jen, for everything you did to get me to the finish line. It's not easy. So thank you for coming on board.
It was oddly a pleasure. When I was asked to join to help with education, I was like, as a past co-chair, as a past chair, as a longtime Oregon board member, I've done my due, I've done my time. And then I realized the timing and I'm like, what? Yeah, I'll help. Like, this needs to happen. We need education. You can't get registration without education. So it needs to happen. And it was fun to just dive right in and not experience the whole thing because it wasn't as stressful, but it was stressful.
I definitely understand. I think part of what helped us in our education, and correct me if I'm wrong, was starting with our theme. So one of the things that we did as a group was we decided our theme was so important this year to just talk about the positive aspect of coming out on the other side of COVID. We knew it wasn't over, but we definitely wanted to be positive about that. We've gone through so much. So thus the Rise Up theme came to be. And with that Rise Up theme, I think Jen and I both took it upon ourselves to find those education partners that can kind of meet that theme, right? What are the takeaways? What are the things that you can find out from each one of these speakers and or educators to help you continue on your journey as you do your planning for your events? So Jen, I think one of the first things we did, and that we did great, was to find a person to kick off this whole thing. And that was Amy. Give us a little insight on how we came about all of that. I know we stumbled across Amy through someone else, I think.
I think, now I don't remember exactly. I believe Amy submitted, so we did a call for speakers. I think the committee did it before I joined. They did it because I had the spreadsheet of who submitted responses. So the call for speakers, it was, what is your topic? Give the summary, give the takeaways. And just reading that, it really resonated with the theme. So we set a speaker call to interview her. And the thing, especially with virtual, is when you interview a speaker, you need to make sure that they are a presence, that they're going to be captivating. I mean, we've all been to meetings where a speaker is maybe ho-hum, and that's in real life. And you still get some takeaways, but you're not as engaged. In a virtual world, you want to make sure the attendees are paying attention, that they are really looking at their screen and they're really engaged. And really thought Amy was able to do that. And her topic was just perfect. And it was the perfect rise up first thing to get everybody started.
Yeah. Stephanie was nice enough to remind us that Amy actually came to us through one of our supplier vendors, which was the Washington
awesome.
State Convention Center. So,
that's right.
Yeah, right. I know it feels like forever ago, but amazing to have also those vendors in your back pocket. I mean, we really were at the point where we were looking back at our vendors and our suppliers and saying, who have you seen or who have you suggested that should be a part of this when it came time to really pulling this together? So I think it's okay to, ask for help. Ask for help from those who might have been to another conference or who have just know so many people in the industry that they can definitely help you with what you need to do. So yay to
yeah,
us.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then also looking through the call for speakers, analyzing what they submitted. And it wasn't like we got a huge response. Don't think that we were wading through hundreds. We weren't even wading through tens of speakers. But also, like, I always had up the CIC domains for CEU credit. Like, does it apply? Does it apply? We need to make sure we have the CEUs. And then also relying, John Chen recommended several speakers. Fantastic, well-known speakers, but fantastic speakers. But we have budget constraints.
Right.
We can't. They would have been phenomenal, but we don't have $20,000 to pay a speaker.
Right. Well, I think that's
have
part
$1,000 to spend.
Right. Well, even so, we have to speak to John himself. To me, he's part of the education, right? We were looking for him to be that solid anchor to really bring this virtual conference together when we made that decision. When we pulled the string and said, we're definitely going all virtual, we all looked at each other and said, that's great. But do we really know how to do that in the way that we want to? And who's the guy who can really make sure that we pull this off the way we want it to be seen for our peers? And John, your name was the first one who came up. I wasn't sure if it was Anne or whomever who suggested it, but as soon as the name was said, we all kind of went like this and said, yes, let's get the expert in the room on this particular topic and have him set the platform and maybe even the cadence so that we're sure that as we fill in the blanks with our educational items, we're doing it the right way. So
yeah, I love that we got like Anthony Vade, right, who did some really innovative work because he had a whiteboard camera, but he's doing event design. But I do want to comment about, one panel that we got in. And of course, sometimes it's like, I love that you said that, right? We have vendors and sponsors in our back pocket. In this meetings industry, it's about our relationships. And even one of our good friends, Joan Eisenstadt, out of DC, came back, looked through the category, and, we've been working together. And she goes, where's the Asian representation in this part? And we were actually able to respond to that. I thought, and I was in the middle of it. Like, I wasn't looking at it that way. I'm like already having enough challenges. Like, how are we going to put this on time? And so but it was so great to hear her voice as an ally do that. And because I've been working with other people over the past year on a Stop Asian Hate panel and group, we actually now have API event profs as a group that are starting to collect. We were able to instantly put a panel in of well-known speakers, as well as our advocate, another ally, Zoe Moore. And I think it brought something that to this conference. So I want to thank you on the educational side for looking for that, right? And those who are planning education, think about how are we going to be inclusive and diverse with that. So back to you, Kimberly and Jen.
Yeah, I enjoyed being a moderator for that. And also just finding those people who made a difference. And really, I think you just said something really important, is take a step back. We're all so immersed in it, and we had been for 2 years, that it was nice to have a fresh set of eyes. So at that particular point, to have another person who's familiar with what we do, take a visual of what we were planning as far as our agenda, was very eye-opening. It was very insightful in telling us how we had to find a little bit of balance in what we were doing and how to do it better so that we weren't so one-sided with some of the education that we were doing. Jen, where were some of the other ideas that we came up with? I know Zoe, I had run into, believe it or not, on LinkedIn, because I was following her as a LinkedIn entity, only to find out that John knew her through his other entities. So once again, it's a small world, and you use what you can to find those folks. I think you even looked through magazines. I think you looked through MPI and a few.
I tried to go with trending topics too, like hot topics for planners and suppliers. So, I don't read all the MPI emails, but the weekly briefs, that weekly email, or I think it's daily, I don't even know. But it is hot topics. And then the MPI magazine, and really the MPI website too. Like, what are people talking about? And then, we also had to think about, I know we really wanted a DE&I speaker, because it is important in our industry. And, we interviewed a couple, and fantastic speakers, amazing prices. So
let's talk about the reality of that. That was a big part of our game plan, is when we went in and we found all these folks, and you think it would end there, and we had these amazing people to choose from. We had to have the really real conversation of, I either don't have money, or can you give me your lowest price, please, and work with me in order to make this happen. And I think the takeaway that we can give you as planners is, don't be afraid to ask. Most of these folks have been doing this. They know who they are. There were some we had to pass on because we couldn't meet what they had required. But a majority of them said, hey, we get it. We get it. It's COVID and people have reduced budgets. And we so want to be a part of your event and get our messaging out, that we're willing. And I think we got folks who are willing to not only donate their speaking efforts, but even some that came in very, very low. I mean, it was minimal to what they would otherwise cost. And some of those folks are the people that I think Jen and myself would look at and say, you're going to be at the top of our list for 23, right? Those are the people we look back. We want to make sure we say thank you. We want to make sure that we reward their efforts in getting us through the leaner times by possibly being in person and hybrid next year. So,
Kimberly and Jen, we love, I know there's so many speakers, so hard to choose, but people don't also see the other side. Sometimes we're as speakers, we're terrible, right? We put our stuff in late, we're hard to get back to and other things. But some of the speakers are really great to work with. Jen and Kimberly, as your closing comments, can you just give a shout out to one speaker who you really behind the scenes enjoyed working with?
Well, mine was Therese Tarkin. We just had an instant connection, and she was hilarious. Like, setting up her interview, she said, should I have something prepared? Which I thought was hilarious and sweet. And I was just in a really goofy mood. And I said, yes, we will be starting out with calisthenics. And then I would like a 5-minute summary of War and Peace. And so when we popped on the Zoom for her interview, she had her elastic band, and she's like, I'm ready for calisthenics.
And if you saw her, she was the one with the puffer in the video in the opening.
And the beret, and the beret and sunglasses.
I love her. How about you,
Um,
Kimberly?
for me, it would be two. It would be both Zoe Moore, who I mentioned that I had been following on LinkedIn, and then to make a connection. You know how you have someone on LinkedIn that you kind of see and you see their comments, but then to actually reach out to them and send them an email and say, "Hey, I'm wondering if you would do this," and get a response back. It was a wonderful thing to say. LinkedIn is actually worthy of what it provides for us as far as business relationships. The other part of that is someone who John introduced as part of the Stop Asian Hate panel, which is Jolene Jang. She's someone who lives near me fairly closely here in our Seattle backyard, and just an amazing personality that I never would have otherwise have gotten to know. But now I feel, we want to meet down in Chinatown and go have ramen together. So amazing personalities, amazing people who are then also willing, when you ask them for feedback, to give you all the ideas for the next event, because now they've experienced it. So thank you so much for that, John.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Jen and Kimberly, for all your work on education. Now we got to bring up somebody who you really got to thank, which is the person who planned this conference. Let's bring up the one and only Stephanie Grain. Kim and Jen, how could you ever thank Stephanie, especially if you're part of the Oregon chapter, because she's been doing stuff for you for so many years. You get a couple words here to thank Stephanie.
Well, I'd love to start by saying, Stephanie, just you handling the rehearsals for our educational speakers alone was beyond. If you do anything, people, in a hybrid entity, please go through rehearsals with your people. It could be very short, it could be sweet, but it is oh so necessary. And Stephanie handled everything from the scheduling and making sure they got there, to making sure they had the links, to just making it all come together. So thank you for that.
I agree. Jen?
Yeah, there's not enough thank yous to Stephanie ever. I came in late. She helped provide some direction, always helped me. There was one like 2:30 in the morning email, and I said, it's not Cascadia unless I email you at 2:30 in the morning.
That's true.
And the other part of that, of course, is all of our stats and all of our registration and just keeping us on time and the minutes for our meetings. She was even handling that part to make sure that we stayed on task. So bravo, staff. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly and Jen. All right, let's see. Stephanie, again, you've been, I guess, the chapter administrator or so for MPI Oregon for a very, very long time. And Cascadia had that unique role, too, where it actually offers a piece for meeting planners. They recognize now, which I think is a great part about being able to put resources towards the meeting planning aspect here. So, Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit about this year's experience and what you saw from your meeting planning side. Thanks, Stephanie.
Great. Thanks, John. And thanks for the kind words. I appreciate it. I couldn't have done it without my cohort, Lori Servin from Action Registration. She wasn't able to be here because she's on site for an event. So she couldn't be here today. But yeah, Cascadia, I've been doing Cascadia for many years. I started with doing just registration. And then last year, I was going to help with the planning with Audrey, who's done it for a couple of years. And then we didn't do Cascadia in 2021. And then Audrey got a new job during the pandemic. So I took over her role and brought on Lori. So yeah, it's been great. It's not where I thought I'd ever do was plan Cascadia or help plan Cascadia, but it was a great event. And I was really excited to be part of this team because all of you are amazing and kept on task, and it was really easy to do. So I would say for this year, we really started this year's planning in October of 2019. And as everyone said, it was kind of just a rollover from 2021, where we just went to a state of industry to finally be able to do the Rise Up in 2022. The biggest thing for me, I didn't do a lot of on-site planning because we kind of were back and forth with the Delta and what are we going to do? And so a lot of my interaction with the venue was just figuring out what can we do to give you the biggest bang for your buck. And so in November, I think it was, we ended up taking the venue and taking away half of our guest rooms, taking away half of our space, because we're like, okay, this is going to be a smaller event. People's budgets are shot because of COVID, and we just don't know where our attendance is going to be. So a lot of that was working with the venue and just renegotiating and what are the concessions going to look like. And again, Coeur d'Alene is amazing to work with. They were very generous to us. They were very kind to us in understanding where our situation was. Karen just asked what the attendance was. We had about 90 people at the conference, at the virtual conference. So we negotiated, and then once we got that negotiation back in November, they really needed to know an answer in December if we were going forward or not. So they had time to renegotiate the space if they were going to resell that space. So we started looking at budget, and everyone has brought up budget, but talked about it. But that was a huge thing because we need to be fiscally responsible to our chapters. Because the chapters, even without Cascadia, are struggling during COVID. So we looked at the numbers. I can't even tell you how many revisions of the budget and where's our break even and where's our break even if we do this, and what's our break even if we do this, and what if we do this. A lot of what ifs budgets to see, can we do this in person and make sense and not go way in the hole in the budget. And it just didn't pencil out. So we moved forward with virtual, and as everybody said, John was our first thought. Okay, let's call John. He can help us produce this and make it different and not feel like we're a Zoom meeting. And thank you, John. Kudos to you. I mean, it wouldn't have happened without your production and your sponsorship and everything that you did. And I'm so appreciative of working with you. It was a pleasure. Learned a lot. So, but yeah, as far as producing a virtual, Kimberly said it, the speaker rehearsals are key. You have to do speaker rehearsals, and you have to make sure that you can hear them right and that their video looks good, and go over how they're going to present. And of course, John has lots of new ways of presenting that looked really cool that I know that Jesse States did and Tara Lashenko did. And so it was great to have that different presentation style. But just the production and knowing what everybody's roles is from behind the scenes the day of. We did get a great comment in our overall survey that having the hosts and ambassadors made everybody feel welcomed, and they didn't feel like a nobody on the screen. So we really worked hard to make sure to include everybody and say hi to everybody and make comments with everybody and chat with everybody so that everybody felt included and just didn't feel like it was a Zoom meeting and you're just staring at your screen all day. But working with Jen and Kimberly on the education was great. They came up with some great speakers. Again, budget was the key, and we had to work around that budget. So it was just an honor to work with everybody. And I thoroughly enjoyed planning this virtual conference. I mean, it just was, like I said, couldn't have done it without John. And it just made it so nice to have a production schedule that he made, basically minute by minute production schedule, and who's going to say what and what's going to happen. And, that behind the scenes for all of us, all 6 of us were on the committee, and knowing what everybody's going to do made a huge difference in producing this conference.
Perfect, Stephanie. I think you can actually share some of the results too. You've seen some of the feedback or other numbers. So again, on the planner side, can you just kind of give a couple highlights of what people felt and thought?
Sure, I can do that. Somehow it closed, so I'll get into it really quick. I know we had lots of people love the keynotes. All of them were highlights, and everyone got a lot out of it. People love song division. That was a big one as far as our extracurricular networking. Okay. And let's see. I know that we did asking what was the overall experience of the Cascadia conference, and our virtual experience got 74%. So that was awesome. And that was the highest one out of, education, bingo, song division. So that was awesome. Content and overall value of Cascadia this year was great. Kudos to the entire committee.
Well, there we go. Any other final comments? Otherwise, about to bring all of you up. Oh, by the way, Kimberly also said networking in the hall. We literally had a breakout room called the hallway, and people used it. Right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Any final
Yeah.
comments, Stephanie?
No, people winning at bingo and the opening session, and we just got some great comments. It was so exciting, all of us being on virtual for 2 years to still get those great comments back on how we produced the event and the education that we gave to everybody. So it was really nice to see those when we couldn't be in person.
And again, Stephanie and I have had the opportunity to work together in the past. And I got to tell you, these relationships, when you're trying to do something that is different and quickly, those relationships really help. And I got to reiterate what Kimberly said, which is the organizing all the rehearsals is one of the critical factors. To me now, it used to be a yellow flag. Now it's a red flag. You cannot host a virtual conference without rehearsals, because there is so much that can go wrong. Right. And we got so much right, and better yet, I'm going to share some secrets about what we did in those rehearsals that made Cascadia different. Stephanie, I want to say thank you. I want to give a shout out to Song Division, who is one of the sponsors. I'm now going to share with you a freestyle rap. Now, let me just show you the video I'm about to show you. Has a gentleman. He has no idea what he's going to say. 70 plus people were online who were all chatting, and if you listen carefully, he uses all of those words, including the very funny word etouffee. Here we go.
Let me get a beat going. DJ, give me a beat. Here we go. Check 1 2. Check, check, 1 2, check, mic 1 2. Now it's Mr. D on this rhyme about the freestyle. I do this to make the party people go wild. I say Greg says raise your glass. Yeah, if you get thirsty, you better raise it fast, because everyone here know I'm bringing the cheers. I don't know what's in your drink, maybe a couple of beers. I see Maggie May and I see the word Corona. I'm on this microphone and it's something I don't wanna part of, because I'm done with the COVID mess. I'm on this microphone, gotta get the stress off my chest. So we got drink tickets and we all be walking. Mr. D's freestyle is how I'm talking. I'm the rap master and banquet chicken. I'm on this microphone, it's finger licking. I'm sticking to the rhymes that I see in the chat, and when you put more in there, yo, it makes me rap. Now they say etouffee is a dish, but I can't eat it if it got shellfish, because I'm allergic and it make my face swell. I'm on this microphone, I just thought I had to tell you a couple things. I see your name badges. I'm on the microphone, yo, and I could never be tragic. I'm only be Jurassic, just like the park. I'm kicking this rhyme and I was bringing the spark. I see the word purple and I see the word cruising. On this microphone, this is just what I'm doing as I freestyle, and my rhymes are gluten free. Coming from me, from Tennessee, Mr. D. Lyrically, I be the best on the MIC. I've been doing this thing since the age of 3. Now I'm on this microphone with precision. Somebody told me they got dietary restrictions. That means just like me, I can't eat shellfish, but it's okay. Well, I won't even touch that dish. Now stand up. It's time for us to rise up, my friends, and I can do it all day again and again. No, I see Song Division right between me and you. I grab this microphone, this is what I do. And I stand in front of my green screen. I keep the main thing, and rip it out the mainframe. Somebody got a virtual background. Break it on down to the last compound and molecules, electrons and neutrons and protons too. It's just what I do when I bring it to you. Bring it through this Zoom. I bring the sound effects with the beatbox. It's coming straight out of my neck into my mouth, coming out over across your screen. And this is what I do. If you know what I mean, they say diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yo, you put them together, yeah, that's the solution. Now listen very close, Mr. D's got to stop. This is what we call freestyle. We call it hip hop. Peace.
Whoa!
Isn't that amazing, right? By the way, I was reminded that Damien is Jen Cox's new boyfriend. Just kidding. All right, I'm going to bring everybody up and just go through some of the best highlights here. So let's give a round of applause here for these people as I bring them up. Let's see, we're going to bring up Stephanie, Jen Cox, right? Kimberly. We need more applause. Oh wait, I missed a spotlight. Let's see. Add spotlight. Hold on a second. Now I'll hit the action music. There you go. There's the right people. We're almost got all of you on. This is a round of applause for this committee. Those in the virtual audience, give them a round of applause. Okay, good. Here, I got it here. So I wanted to just spend these last few minutes, and one key piece that we had is how to produce a Zoom that's different than a typical Zoom, right? And One is having the right team. And I just want to add a behind the scenes story, which is, despite all the work that you do and everything going on, literally my Zoom crashed in the first 2 minutes. Right, I went in, spotlight, started trying to do opening remarks, and right, I disappeared. And this is why the key of having the right team is here, is that the team then swooped up, because it's not just me. Everybody else who was on was able to, do something and bring that back. It only took me about a minute or two to get back on, but that's really the key, is to have all these fail safes, plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, that happen so that you work together. And even when you don't know exactly, you didn't plan for it, if that plan has got you, right, if you built that plan, built that team correctly, they'll have you. We ran a rehearsal, and I want to add the one piece. One note that we have is we really followed a principle called end on a high note. And the end on a high note is, it came from product market research, and says if you can architect a high note in the last 5 minutes of a product demo, like in the last 5 minutes, people are more likely to buy. And I feel like virtual meetings are the same. So we really challenged a lot of speakers to try and do more. And so I got to tell you, Jessie States is a busy person, right? She works for MPI. She's one of the best presenters I know. And I'm like, can you do this thing? And she initially was like, nope, right? I've got all these speaking engagements. And I just I decided just to show, like I ran and started changing some slides. And I said, well, what do you think? Are you maybe, here, I did a couple for you. What do you look? And then all of a sudden, this is why I love Jessie. She goes, I got this. And she just finished all the slides. So she was using this virtual background for all of her content, which means that when she's presenting, she takes the entire screen. Let's see. So here, now I'll ask for comments from each of you. We created kind of the version of what I love to call a hotel. We opened breakout rooms. We gave everyone control in my theory that I call let the inmates run the asylum, meaning that you get the choice to go wherever you want to. We'll train you how to do it, right? And we can help you if you don't have the tech piece, but you could go to any room, including the hallway. Does somebody have a comment about those self-directed breakout rooms and how well they worked? Just signal. We'll go to Ann. Go ahead, Ann.
I have to unmute first. No, I really enjoyed it, and I actually used it when there were two breakouts that I wanted to go to at the same time. I knew one was being taped, one was not. So I popped back and forth, and I realized I need to stay in the one that wasn't being taped so that, because I could always go back and watch the tape afterwards. But it was fun being able, because people always have that problem in a conference. Like there's more than one session at a time that you want to go to. And it's really, this is going to be the benefit of virtual, because when you're in a classroom, you're not going to, people do it. I don't get up in the middle of a speaker and walk out, right? You're not going to do that, but you could do that easily virtually and pop back and forth. I enjoyed that.
Excellent. Okay, the next highlight I have here, we opened with music. We were able to find a singer who is exceptional on Zoom, Joe Welch, who is also a sign language interpreter, by the way, and she sang Rise Up in the first 3 minutes of the conference. Can anyone have a reaction to Joe Welch? Let's go to Jen.
I thought it was a beautiful way to start the conference. And she was amazing. And it just really got everyone alive, awake, focused. We don't do that in our in-person conference. We don't have someone singing to us to start the day. It was great.
To me, it was almost like how you kick off a game. We kicked it off with her, right? We didn't do the anthem, but it was almost our anthem for the entire event, and she did it beautifully and a cappella, and I don't know how she does it, but once again, those relationships, John, just finding the right person for the right thing, and it made a difference. It really did.
I have never met Jo in person. She is a member of my online virtual karaoke. And over the months, she's also figured out how to use original sound in Zoom, which Sound Division is using, and a pro mic like a Yeti mic. And so all those combinations all together is what allowed for that. Let's do to this. Zoe Moore did a whole presentation on annotation. Anybody have comments on that session? Oh, wait, well, I got a new button.
I'll step in. Zoe was amazing. She has so much knowledge in her head. She's a 12-year Army veteran and just everything she brings to the table is that aspect of not only being on that side of the fence, but as a single Black mother and, progressing through what it takes to do what we do, especially in this industry, hospitality and events. She just does it well. And she brings an insight that a lot of people don't see. But I love that she doesn't so much play devil's advocate, but she makes sure that you see something in a different way or visualize it in a different way that maybe you weren't aware of. One of the things she did kick back to me is, why didn't we have someone who was doing sign language, or at least have the ability to have, text to speech. So, so once again, you think you're being very diverse and inclusive, but you really have to keep thinking outside of the box and just add that next thing in. And you can bet it's on my list for next year to include.
So side note, one of the techniques she used is she designed her slides specifically with blank space to annotate. So all the attendees could then annotate over the slides. And it was actually really fun to see 30, 40, 50 different comments on a slide. Almost every slide was used in that way. All right, let's see. Let's talk about some other setups. Tara, Anthony, or Jesse, right? So who can comment on Tara's amazing closing keynote?
I'll say a few words. Tara's information I thought was a great wrap up. She talked about the meetings outlook, and that was a new report that came out in February of where people sit as far as in person and hybrid and how the industry is doing through COVID and coming out of COVID. And I thought her information was very timely. It was, she produced in a studio, which was different than anyone else had done. So she had a screen that she could point to, and she was standing up just like she would in an in-person meeting. So I think it was great information to end the conference with, and it actually was very positive. Oregon had done the similar presentation in December, and it was much more positive than December presentation.
Side note, she had partnered with Sarah Solomon, also a industry veteran and leader, to go to that studio so that she had all the AV for it. And it allowed her to show a lot of data-heavy presentation and, she got to reference all the information as well as we were used polling too to get what people's responses were and then see how it matched or didn't match what was inside of the poll. Let's see, we got one last comment here. Oh yes, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to talk about Anthony Bates' setup. I mean, that is his actual office where he uses all his walls. He doesn't do slides. He uses his walls. And in a virtual world, that's far more engaging than a slide when you know someone's actually taking the time to write. In one of the videos I previewed before interviewing him to speak, he even had stuff on his ceiling. Like, he utilizes all his space in his office. It's amazing.
And he showed you it. He actually was able to show it because, most of the time we only see this view on video. Speaking of viewing, let's just check. Karen or Mary, would you like to come up? We'd love to see if you have either a final comment or question for today as we close out. Just shake your head yes or no.
Sure.
Thank you, Mary. We have some guests with us. What about you, Karen?
I was very off screen during Cascadia because I was sick, but I thought it was fabulous. All my virtual meetings are for doctors, and they're really very boring. Really, they're just podium talks, and you can't have anything flashing and blah blah blah. So Cascadia was so refreshing, and I think one of the things that really stood out was these ambassadors who were warm and caring.
Great point.
And interjected. And I was just like, I'm sitting in the room with Jen. I am sitting right next to her, and she's just talking only to me. And whoever the ambassador, others of you played that role also. Instead of, we'll say 2 or 3 leaders being the only people who spoke. It was just so warm and engaging. I didn't want it to end, and I wasn't even on camera.
Thank you for that, Mary. Ambassadors, by the way, just so by definition, they're people who are trained and part of the team. So a lot of people you see on screen, even if they weren't speaking, they would put ambassador on their name, rename themselves, and then their job was to engage people like the way the speaker can't. So primarily by chat, and they would take care of you in many different ways. I know Stephanie also had a registration desk. So like if you came in and were confused, she could pull you to a registration desk room, explain everything that's going on, and many people we're grateful for that. Karen, do you have any other final questions or comments before we end?
No, just was sorry I couldn't make it. There were actually about 6 of the Oregon chapter MPI members working the wine symposium at OCC. So we were not available to participate. But again, I've heard nothing but positive comments. Sounds like you had the right team at the right time and did an extraordinary job. So kudos to everyone.
Excellent. Well, let's give one last round of applause here for this team, all this committee members. Excellent. I would just love to close with this. Again, my name is John Chen. I'm the CEO of Engaging Virtual Meetings, and it was my pleasure to be the lead producer, designer on this program. We're going to close out again. This story about this song is that all through a 1-hour piece with Song Division in the networking, that was super fun. He took out notes and ideas and other types of things, and he basically wrote this song before the end of the hour. It has now become the official song of the Rise Up Cascadia Educational Conference 2022. It just shows you some of the really cool creative things that you could do here in virtual. You know, virtual meetings can be as good as in-person meetings, and sometimes they can be better. I want to say thank you again. Thank you to everyone in the committee, and here's our closing song. Thank you so much.
This is your song. Hope you like it. Here we go. With the funk, with the R&B, with the country and the western. Let's start with some funk, shall we? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Some give me some country. Woo! Come on now. Yeah. Cascadia, Cascadia. I might be from Australia, but we are rocking everywhere with Nirvana, Queen, and even Cher. Jenny and John gave us some chords, and Cowbell gave us one more. We started with that commitment dance. Now everyone was given a chance. Rise up, what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia sure loves their etouffee. The rock and roll game show was heaps of fun, but the winning team was team number 1. The dance contest was hard to beat. Cascadians sure have 2 left feet. We are in 2022, and what does that mean to you? Concerts, travel, and sunshine. And don't forget some purple wine. Rise up, that's what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia loves their etouffee. So rise up, that's what we say at the beginning of each new day. Rise up, the dragons will slay. Cascadia sure loves the etouffee, yeah. Aggies love their etouffee. Cascadians love their etouffee. Cascadia the way. They love their etouffee. That's what you call it. It's called a sticky tape dance. Oh yeah, feel it going on, big man. Cascadia, keep on rocking all the way. Just make me your queen of etouffee. Oh, Jenny, rhymes with sleigh. Okay, all right, Cascadia, all the way.